Hello and welcome to another video, this time with the God Mode Mage build, a continuation of the crit Spellblade, but just a very much superior version of it. We are immortal, have infinite mana, feature insane DPS and burst, are completely self-sufficient and are not dependent on our parents, the companions. So you can pick and choose whoever you like most. First, let's have a look at the gameplay. We are using a blast spell combo to obliterate everything the game throws at us. Size does not matter, we are crushing everything that is before us with massive meteors, ice spikes or cutting through the very fabric of reality. Each ability grants us invincibility as well as hyper armor, meaning we just need to constantly cast them in order to never die. This is solved very easily with just making each spell crit all the time, restoring mana on dealing critical damage, meaning the more enemies we hit with our spells, the more mana we regen. Two of our abilities always hit twice, making it possible to loop our God mode. Meteor on a single target always hits just one time, so when we are using Meteor we need at least 2 targets in range, so it's a bit more situational. Another thing that you need to know is that you need to see an enemy and no wall should be in between you and the enemy. Otherwise, the spell is not going to hit, despite landing on top of the enemy. But that's not all. We are also stacking advantages and buffs to boost our damage and defenses. Each buff grants us a ton of damage in percentages in the skill tree and because of gear. And we also get a ton of survivability because we also get deflect as well as a ton of defense. All of this makes for a very enjoyable playstyle. It is also very brain dead, but you're invincible and seeing everything obliterated in an instant just makes me happy. So we are just a god walking through the game. Next, let's have a look at the gear and skill tree. I also just fried my controller cable, so I will be showing this one with my mouse. For the orb, I prefer the Fate Light. It's giving me additional healing and healing on a perfect defense. But most importantly, it's giving us damage versus health, which is pretty rare and is very much needed on this build. As the enchantment, we are going with barrier damage. You can also use other orbs, but I personally prefer the necrotic damage here because we don't have necrotic damage on our build with our spells, because we use Voidblade, Meteor as well as Ice Blast, and either Destructive Light or Thunderous End depending on the boss. During regular play, Thunderous End is the better choice, but versus some bosses the light is better. For the Mage Knife we are going to use the Spellcaster Stiletto. The last upgrade for this one is after the point of no return, but after you finish the game you can go back and then play the game again before the point of no return, so you can finish up some stuff. This is particularly important for bosses, for the optional bosses, so you can play through the game, get the regular ending, come back, get the additional scenes after clearing the bosses. So you will have the defense bonus with this one. It provides you with 30 defense, mana generation, which is also great for the build because we are regenerating mana with our spells once they crit. This is a flat amount and the generation is going to scale that. The defense per advantage is also amazing for this build. You get around 200, even more, if you stack up every advantage the game has to offer. For the staff, I found the Scorching Staff to be the best because you get fire resistance. Fire damage also scales your Meteor, so you have a better AoE spell, and some of the most dangerous enemies in the game utilize fire damage, so fire resistance is going to be great for that. Since I forgot, the Mage Knife is armor damage, and for the staff we have damage at high health. We are basically always at high health, so above 80%, because we regenerate a ton of health and prevent enemies from ever damaging us. Next, we're going to use Defiant Silence. Defiant Silence is just the best helmet for this build. Provides you with crit damage, stagger with critical hits, and crit damage relative to Shadow Dragon's strength. If we have 3200, that's 320 crit damage. Basically impossible to beat with any other helmet. For the Garb of Kinship, you will get a little bit later in the game, but it's providing you with advantage duration, 10% damage per advantage, effectiveness of all advantages, which is also amazing, and 5% health on gaining an advantage. This also applies when you refresh an advantage. So we regenerate a ton of health with this one. Next we have the Twin Buckle Binding. Provides us with enhanced damage and potion use, and we are also going to heal 100 flat health on gaining quickened with an ability. This is very easy on this build because Voidblade will provide you with that just with 1 skill point in Pressure Point. So on a critical hit with a strike ability, we get quickened. Next, we have a core equipment type for the build. This one enables the build in combination with the legendary ring, Maw of the Black City. The All Mother's Corpse provides us with blast damage. Blast damage is barrier. All our spells are blast. and 25 mana on blast ability critical damage dealt. This means if we hit 10 enemies, we get 250 mana. This one is scaled with resource generation. For example, our Mageblade has 15%. And we can also get something like this on the ring with 25% mana generation. And blast abilities gain damage from shocking weapons. This is very minor, so not very important for the build. Then we have Maw of the Black City. This ring is gained very early in the game. This ring can be found in the chest right at this blighted tree. You need to kill 50 enemies in the zone, so you just reset the zone and then get back to the tree and you get the ring. This ring states all abilities critically strike. Abilities consume 20% of our maximum health as physical damage. Physical damage can be mitigated with just defenses and physical resistance. So this one is basically just around 7% of our maximum health at the current. With all stacks, it's about basically nothing. So we regenerate enough health with Twin Buckle Binding, as well as the Garb of Kinship, to basically ignore the penalty of this one, and all our abilities always crit, which enables All Mother's Corpse. So we have infinite health, infinite mana, and infinite advantages, basically always spamming our abilities. So we have invulnerability and hyper armor, so nothing can beat us. For the last ring, I have been experimenting. The Graven Opal is not the best choice here. Ranged attack damage and weak point damage does not seem to work with this build. So something like, for example, Paragon's Knuckle will prevent you from getting one-shot. Not that you will ever be able to get one-shot, but on low health, resistances, percentage to defenses, 30 defense, really good defensive ring. Otherwise, the Band of Smoke is also very, very good in combination of the Scorching Staff. So you get cold damage and cold damage versus health. You get resistances to cold damage, and 50% of other damage types also contribute to cold. The same applies for the Warden Signet, depending on what you prefer, what you're currently fighting, and what type of damage you want to deal to that enemy. Another ring that is also great for mana sustain, so you can use your Meteor much more freely, is the Glacial Talus. Also a great ring, scales all your damage, but it's a little bit inferior to the Band of Smoke or the Warden Signet. Now, as for the enchantments on your gear, physical resistance, defenses on your garb, you can also go with max HP. However, the more max HP you have, the more health you need to regenerate. So it's better to have more defenses and mitigate more damage. The belt cannot be enchanted. On the amulet, critical damage. On the ring, blast damage. And on the other ring, it's going to be mana generation or resource generation, like on this ring, the mana generation here. For your abilities, on the Void Blade, we want damage while Shocking Weapons is active. We're going to activate Shocking Weapons with this build very easily through just detonations. Then on Meteor, we have just flat out 50% more damage. Very, very good. And on Ice Blast, we have 75% critical damage. You will notice that Ice Blast is going to deal much more damage than any of your other spells. Void Blade should be your highest damage number spell. However, because this one is adding 75% damage to a multiplicative bucket, it's going to scale your Ice Blast damage much, much higher, basically negating any resistances enemies have. But we can scale this one even further because we can apply Pierce as our rune. Pierce provides us with 100% penetration, so resistances are mitigated, and we are dealing a ton of damage even versus resistant enemies. Escalate provides us with 10% more damage. We never are going to use this rune in the active form because we would rather have Vivify or Pierce active. Pierce is more damage, and Vivify will provide us with an additional free ability use as well as mana generation. So if we miss a spell, we can activate this one and then regenerate our mana through just an application of Void Blade or Ice Blast, because this one will not cost any mana and everything is going to be Gucci. Now for the basic rotation, we want to always alternate between Void Blade and Ice Blast versus every single enemy, except when there is going to be another enemy and the enemy is also going to be vulnerable versus fire damage. We want to cast Meteors. So this means 3 enemies or 2 enemies, Meteor. If they are vulnerable to fire, Meteor, and so on and so forth. The ultimate should only be used if you run out of mana and need to just finish out enemies, or you are going to use it for the fun of it. This is the skill tree. This is how it looks with all skill points spent. As you can see, we do not max out the Spellblade. Actually, those points here are pretty much wasted. There is nothing else we can really pick out. And the Spellblade is only picked because of blast efficiency, basically reducing our spell cost by 50. This means Void Blade is going to cost just 1. Same with Meteor and same with Ice Blast, basically enabling us to always cast those. Now Ice Blast has 2 portions of skill damage to it. The first one is the trail that travels to the enemy, as you can see here. This one damages enemies, deals crit damage, and then the blast itself is going to damage enemies again, basically dealing 2 times or 2 instances of critical damage. Void Blade just deals 2 instances of damage. So 1 time when you dash and 1 time when the rift appears. Now, as far as the skill tree goes, we are going to start with Firewall, pick out Meteor, then we travel all the way to Ice Blast, and then we travel all the way down here to the Spellblade and pick out Blast Efficiency. The early game is going to be a little bit painful, but we are going to just use the regular Spellblade build, the Crit Blade build that I have previously shown on the channel. It's going to be the best way to carry this one into the level 20 bracket or 24 bracket, where you can switch the build to this one. And afterwards, you are going to basically never have to worry about anything the game throws at you because you're going to be invincible. Notable passives in the skill tree are going to be the area abilities right here and here. This will scale the area tag right at the Meteor. Another very important one is the advantage here, Deflect. Deflect makes you ignore the next impact received, basically taking no damage. So if you have to move between enemies, you're still not going to get damaged after using Ice Blast. Specifically, this one applies only to control abilities, and Ice Blast is our only control ability. Hitting enemies with an area ability will also provide us with enhanced damage. Then we have controlled abilities, so more damage with Ice Blast. We deal more damage with area abilities if we hit multiple enemies. Imbued duration will provide us with shocking weapons on the detonation. Our best armor is going to be medium armor. You don't need to worry about this one early game, but later on you will find a ton of really good medium armor in the chest slot, so you want to pick this one a little bit later. Something I also like to pick up, especially early on, this will apply to Wall of Fire to shred resistances or defenses on enemies. Very nice to burst enemies down, but later on you can refund this one and then pick up, for example, 50 mana here to have a little bit of more of a reserve to spam your Meteor. Again, critical hits with strike abilities will gain you Quickened, which will reduce the cooldown of abilities, which we do care about because Quickened will reduce the global cooldown of every single ability. Now, this ability here does not state a cooldown, but when you use it, you have a 1 second cooldown on this one, and this Quickened ability reduces this cooldown by a lot, so you're going to spam your abilities much faster. It's basically attack speed for us. And then we have also defenses like Bulwark here and Bulwark here. That's 20% physical resistance, going to reduce the damage from the ring quite substantially. Then we can pick up the right side here for more stacks or for burning and shocked. And then we still pick up some random spells, like for example Chain Lightning, because in the details it stated ability damage plus 15%. This is also true for Firewall, and this is also true for Frost Nova, as well as Corrupted Ground. And then we have our companions. For our companions, it doesn't really matter. You get the rope right here once you finish her quest line. And the skill tree for the skills looks like this. We are basically always going to use the time slow ability and sometimes the heal. The time slow ability will provide us with some additional damage, like here, 25% more damage. It will also regenerate 50 mana, which is really, really good. And Glacial Pace will be cast every 60 seconds, basically for free, automatically, and apply weakened. And then there is Harding. For Harding, you also get a really nice armor, but we don't really care about this one because we are always going to use Soothing Potion. Soothing Potion applies regeneration, which is also an advantage, rejuvenation, sorry, which is also going to apply Deflect to us, cleans you of all afflictions, and provide you with an advantage. So this one is great. You also get to apply Shred, which applies Sundered, so you can trigger your detonations with this one and then trigger shocking weapons on your abilities. And then sometimes you also want to push the Adrenaline Rush button because it's going to grab you 50 mana on activation only during combat. So if you're lacking mana, push this one, and that's about it. Regardless, you're going to be extremely strong anyway, so you can pick any companions you like. For example, Belara is also great instead of Nev. You can pick up Darwin or Tash if you want a tank, and you can pick up Emmerich because he has a lot of swag, and there is also Lucanis because Lucanis also is an awesome character. Not so great in the love department. Anyway, this sums up the video. If you liked what you saw, please leave a like, comment and subscribe. You can also check out my 100% review, which would help me out a lot. I'm currently working on expanding the channel a little bit, so if you would like to check it out, please do give it a chance. Anyway, see you next time and bye.